About Joburg in 50 years' time, that history will not be able to exclude mentioning Rosebank Union Church. At the heart of it, that's what we want to be as a church. This countercultural, redemptive community. In other words, a city in a city. Rosebank is this little city in the city of Joburg, a city of refuge. We want to be that city of refuge. So distinctly different, so distinctly aligned to Jesus So obviously for Jesus and the ways of Jesus, but also so obviously for our city on behalf of Jesus.
Welcome, church. Mine's working. Welcome, church family. Good evening, everyone. You go, Candace. Try. This is sabotage. Good evening, everyone. We are so excited to have you all here. Firstly, thank you for coming. It's always such a pleasure to gather together as a church family. And I think tonight will be so worthwhile for us to be all here together. So, brief introduction. My name is Ariel. Everybody knows Candace.
Yeah. My mic is working now, thank goodness. Yes. I turned it off as I was walking up the stairs, so it's self-sabotage. Anyway, it's so great to see you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us in person. And then to the people online, it's really great to have you joining us. So normally this meeting for the last 2 years has just been an online meeting where there's been a couple of us cramped into the studio. So it's actually really nice to have us all in the auditorium tonight. Yeah. It's really such a privilege to have you with me here, Ariel, so thank you for joining us.
Ditto.
So I think we are going to just try and play a fun game quickly. So on the screens, you'll see a slide. Richard and Brett started keying the theme for this meeting, giving you 2 letters previous week and 2 letters now. I don't know if the slide can come up quickly. And so we want to do a fun, like we both, I was in children's ministry, Ariel was. So
I currently am.
Yeah, so do you want to go through what the next letter is?
Cool. So we have Riri, that's not the word. We have a couple of missing letters. So by the show of hands, oh no, you can just shout out the letters. Shout out the letters. What would be the 3rd letter in our word? Wow. Okay, let's see if that's correct. Yes. Give yourselves a round of applause. We are doing well today. Don't shout out the full answer, otherwise the game's not fun, okay? Okay, what's the next letter? X?
Who said? People online, please feel free to comment as well on my iPad. Yeah.
All together now? S? Okay, yes. I think we can all just say the last letter together as well. H. Okay, there we are. The word is refresh. And I know there's been quite a build up to it over the past few weeks. I wasn't here when the other re came in, so I was like, the only letters that fit is reavaya. So we're not building a train.
That would have been cool though. But this actually was brought up by Richard in our Pentecost sermon. And so this year, Richard just spoke about times of refreshing. And so I think just to refresh our memories, let's cut across to that video.
And now, brothers, I know that you acted in ignorance, as did also your rulers. But what God foretold by the mouth of all the prophets that his Christ would suffer, he thus fulfilled. Repent, therefore, and turn back, that your sins may be blotted out, that times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord, and that he may send the Christ appointed for you, Jesus, whom heaven must receive until the time for restoring all the things about which God spoke by the mouth of his holy prophets long ago. Now, what caught my attention about Peter's second sermon here was, it was a little interaction I had with a friend a while ago, a few weeks ago, and he quoted one line in Peter's sermon, just like off the cuff, and moved on. And this one line really stuck with me, and I want to draw your attention to that one line today, a very appealing line in that sermon. That phrase, that times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord. Just how good does that sound? How appealing does that sound, that times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord? Now, I get, like right now, it's like really cold, so that loses its effect a little bit. I mean, it literally means that refreshing is like to be cooled off. If we were preaching this in the northern hemisphere on Pentecost, it would immediately be a lot more appealing. But doesn't it just sound great? Times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord. It speaks to this idea of being tired. Anybody tired? Like worn out, burning out, at the end of your tether, just drained, fatigued. That times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord. How about even the idea of maybe not worn out per se, but maybe just bored, like stagnant, stale, maybe in your Christian experience or life, like it's just become a big rut. Maybe your Christianity feels like that, like just going through the motions. And maybe you came to church this morning and thinking, Pentecost, maybe this day I'll be refreshed. Well, good. Hopefully you will be today, because that's exactly what's been spoken about here, this idea of times of refreshing coming to us from the presence of the Lord.
It's so horrible watching myself preach. I don't know how you all do it on hours on a Sunday morning. So there are two reasons why I chose that passage on Pentecost Sunday this year. So firstly, because it's a beautiful passage related to Pentecost that I thought had amazing relevance for our lives. But a secondary reason for choosing that passage is because I felt that phrase, times of refreshing, was actually very appropriate to describe kind of where we are as a church at this point in time. And so thinking to this town hall meeting, I was trying to lodge that idea in your minds way back when. The reality is that there's been a lot of refreshing happening in this church. What I mean by that is so much change has taken place, like over the last couple of years. And so I want to recap that with you a little bit, just some of the highlights of all the things that have changed in the church. So just kind of heads up, we're going to be doing lots of reminiscing tonight, all right? So let me walk you back a little bit. So first kind of really big change actually kicked off even before I started at Rosebank, which was a major leadership structure overall. You might, those of you who've been around for a little while, might kind of remember this, but you guys kicked this off before I got you. I was part of completing it and part of implementing it. It led to big rules and constitution change back in 2020, and even just only really like closed it off finally last year. So there was a major, major change. Those who were involved, to others I see around here, know just what this new structure has meant for us. That was followed up also by quite a comprehensive staff structure change, a little bit of a cabinet reshuffle, so to speak, and that also happened. We planned it. I think actually it was a town hall meeting 2020 where we started speaking about it. Beginning of 2021, last year, that took place. And those two items, this major leadership structure change, our staff change, kind of constitute, I think for me, the metaphor that comes to mind, like a massive engine overhaul. I don't know if anyone's had to do an engine overhaul of their car. We had to do one, well, twice actually. Really costly, really hectic exercise, but when it's done, you have like a brand new engine in your car. And this is largely what that change did. I mean, these are things that you all were aware of, and you see at some kind of, surface level happening at the church. But I've got to tell you, that change was not just like a new engine for our church. It was like we added a turbocharger to it. I mean, really, we have it's really allowed us and catalyzed just so much incredible ministry over the past years in ways that you wouldn't know, but it really has been helpful. So that was the engine overhaul. Then we got to work on, well, actually at the same time, but in terms of implementing, got to work on our sense of direction as a church. So the engine is fixed, but like, where are we going? And so enter, what's coming next? The Nexus. Enter the Nexus. So if you've been around a little bit, this is something you'll only see at these kinds of members meetings, or if you've come to a new members class. But what this is it is literally a strategic roadmap for us as a church. This is what gives us direction as a church. And just, I won't go into detail with it tonight, but what it does is it holds together three different kind of ministry paradigms or tensions, so that we got three kind of things that we're focusing on at the same time. So let me roll through those just really quick to show you what's changed. So the first part that we got to work on immediately was the discipleship paradigm. So that's Vector 1, if you're kind of tracking with this. And what this represents, I'm definitely not going into detail here, but what it represents is our attempt to accomplish the Great Commission to make disciples of all nations, both on a personal level in our church, but also at a corporate level. We started with this, and this is, again, behind the scenes, but it's working. So just last year, TownHall meeting, we actually announced our personal Disciple Makers Conference, which we ran last year. It developed all this, a unique personal disciple making plan at Rosebank that plugged a really big hole in that. There was a lot of work and something that we were really proud of. This we're using today. In fact, even just this year now, staff are kind of doing kind of performance, measurement stuff like against this kind of paradigm. So that's there, that's working really well. If we jump to Vector 3, if you're thinking of the vectors, just kind of bottom right, which is the kind of harder one to describe, which is the one where, Vector 1 and Vector 2 are things that other churches could use. So how to make disciples. Vector 2 is kind of values, which just note this year, that's gospel culture. That's what we're busy working on kind of as we speak. But any church could kind of use those things. I think some churches have borrowed ours without our knowing. They can relate to any church, but Vector 3 is different. Vector 3 is what is God particularly impressing upon us as Rosebank Union to be looking at, to be doing here and now. So it's very unique to us and what's happening here. And the answer to that question of what would God have us focus our attention on for here and now, the answer is easy, Joburg. And so that's where kind of the idea of assignment Joburg came up. And that was the intro clip that you heard before the TownHall meeting. We've spoken a lot about that, just how can we leverage the resources that we have as a church, the very strategic location that God has us in, and the beautiful heritage of this church to really make an impact in Joburg. And so 2 things we've done along the way to really take a big step forward with Assignment Joburg. So number 1 was taking on board to Rosebank Union Church Campus Outreach Ministry. Shout out Tombi and Jennifer. I don't know if Yanni's here, but for those who attend, those watching online, or those of you here, I think it's hard to describe the impact that it's made on our church to have you guys as part of our staff. If you come on a Sunday evening service, when CEO are not there, we know that they are not there. I mean, just this past Sunday, I prayed with 4 people that had come through the CEO program. All of them, I was asked if they're Christian. They were not Christian, but happy to be here at Rosebank and wanting prayer. It's just amazing. Just shout out to you guys for the work that CEO is doing there. And they're on board. They're kind of, it's our staff and our ministry. That was a big thing. We launched at a TownHall, I think it was 2020. So that's happening, and we're seeing the fruit of that. And then, of course, last year's TownHall meeting, the big unveil for last year was Johannesburg Bible College in Alex. And I know we're due giving you all some updates on what's been happening there, but basically we've got 20 students in the morning, about 15 students in the evening. We did not anticipate running an evening class. They were only going to run a morning class, but the demand was so big for guys in Alex, especially those working, that we had to open an evening class, and that meant extra expenses, but it's this phenomenal ministry. Shelley, our operations manager, I know is watching at the moment, she lectures there on a Tuesday morning, just lectures there. 2 of our other church members are there tutoring kids. So we're there at this campus in Alex, and that's been a phenomenal ministry that we've taken on board. And so these were 2 very strategic ministries that got us going in this direction of Assignment Joburg. So if you're tracking with the metaphor, overhauled engine, turbocharger on it, a sense of direction, and man, I think we started making up some ground quickly as a church. All that to say, there's been something of a refreshing. So I wouldn't go so far as to say revival. Now, I know revival was an option for Hangman week number 1. When you just had RE, I don't actually know that, but someone said, I know what it is. It's revival. I'm like, oh man, yeah, that's cool, like a refreshed revival. So look, revival's different. We're not in revival. We are looking and praying for it. But you'll know revival when it's revival, because there's lots of people coming to the Lord amongst a network of churches in a particular city. Like that, in my mind, is revival. We're not there yet, but refreshing, I think that's accurate. refreshing. There's been a lot of refreshing going on at this church under the hood and in the sense of direction. So with all this refreshing going on, we feel that the time is right to complete a final step of refreshing. And this final step of refreshing is on a very kind of surface level, a very visible level, that is a refreshing of not so much under the hood and the direction, but a refreshing of our facilities as a church. That's big announcement number 2, actually, of what's coming tonight at TownHall meeting. The facilities. Think about it like with the car metaphor, like the bodywork of the car, 23 years old, looking a little bit tatty in places, interior of the car, seating, carpets, etc. So that's refresh now, is all this refreshing happening in all the right places, under the hood, and with the sense of direction, now refreshing our facilities. We'll get to that in a moment because that's part 2. Part 1, actually, of refresh is a refreshing of our identity as a church. What I'm talking about, y'all, is a fresh version of our logo. That's right. That's part of what we're talking about tonight, is an unveiling of a refreshed logo. Now, you'll notice that I'm using the word fresh and refresh quite carefully and quite deliberately here. And what I mean by that is, like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of change and a lot of freshness. But Rosebank is not a new church, is it? No, it's been here for 116 years. And that is just such a big deal for me. I can't tell you just what a sense of confidence, actually, that gives me, is the sense of that this work of ministry at Rosebank Union here in Sandton has not been the result of any one person or any one particular group of people. It's been the result of God's faithfulness to his church for over 100 years. In fact, even as Ariel was praying earlier, like this evening, like the church has been here over 100 years. Like, it's outlasted any single individual or any group of people. And so that's quite clearly, this is God's church, and he has been faithful to it. We only know a fraction of the stories of what has happened through this church over 100 years. So not a new church, but a sense of freshness, a refreshed church. And so a fresh identity is appropriate, not a new one. So no, we're not changing the name of the church, even though little bit weird that it's Rosebank Union Church, but it's not in Rosebank. It's in Sandton, right? But man, that's part of our legacy. We love that weirdness about it. So we're not talking some kind of name change, not a new logo, but a fresh logo. So we're gonna walk a little bit down memory lane. In a moment, Candice and Ariel will come up and kind of walk you through some of our old logos, and then we will unveil to you the new one, which is going to bear a lot of resemblance to the current one. And that's really intentional, to retain a sense of the heritage and the legacy and the faithfulness of God to this church over 100 years, and the faithfulness of people contributing to it over 100 years. So, fresh logo. So we're going to do that. Candice and Ariel are going to come up and take you through some of the old logos. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. So in order for us to look forward, we need to look back. I think there's a cool phrase in there. But basically, let's look back at our old logos. And we have a fun game with our prizes coming up soon. Cool mugs. Something Richard might not have mentioned is there's a Simon Joburg. There's a beautiful painting that he showed. And it's also on the mugs. That was painted by Kristen. How cool. Woo! So to look back, to look at one of our first logos, it is the one with the ribbons. If we could put that on the screen, there you go. I'm sure some of you, hands up, who remembers this logo? There we go. Okay, quite a few people. Awesome. The ribbons in the logo signify a couple of things, and I'm just going to take us through them. So they first signify unity in Christ, a coming together and an intertwining. Secondly, a diversity. We are of a church of many denominations and cultures and ethnicity. And then third, a strength, where three strands are not easily broken. And so there's also just it blowing in the wind. It's a celebration, like ribbons in the wind. They said something so beautiful here. It's like a royal fanfare, colorful and full of life. And that's how they want that's the representation of our church. And then if you kind of see, there is a cross in the ribbons up at the top. I don't know if you guys see that as well, which is pretty cool. There. So that's kind of symbolizing that. Maybe we could go to our competition now quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, speaking of these lovely mugs right here, we're going to have a bit of a competition. So here's the question. Where have you seen that the logo that was just there on the church premises? Who can think of where these logos still exist? For a mug, Sev.
Okay, no. Not on clothing. Sorry, everyone. On physical things and for people online. Post in the comments and we'll read. So around the church and not on the screens. That doesn't count.
Should we give a clue of how many there are?
Yes.
Oh, so we have, it's 3, right?
3.
So there are 3 places where this logo still exists. Yes?
The front gate.
Can you be more specific?
The main gate, St. Andrew's Road.
Where we drive in? No, sorry. Jenny. Oh, okay. Anyone else?
Yes.
Oh, I've never checked there. Maybe.
We're going to give it to you just because.
We'll give it to you. Will you come up and get a mug? Margie. Someone said the library.
Who said the library? Margie. That's correct, Margie. Yes. Come get your mug.
Come get a mug.
There you go.
Where else, guys? Yes, Helen. No, sorry. People online, please feel free to pop a comment in here.
There you go. You're welcome.
I'm not scowling at anyone. I'm just trying to see under the lights. There's one. Maybe I can give a clue to someone.
Yes,
there is. It's like in stone. Woo!
Yay!
Come on up,
Come
Amy.
get your mug. Good job. To be fair to everyone, I also didn't know. I had no idea. This was news to me today. So there you go.
Is there anywhere else? Okay.
Did they say the front?
Oh no.
No? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
well done.
there's more opportunities to win a prize, so swiftly moving on. Michael Phillip, part of the logo on the side of the bookstore. Yes, Mike. Woo, you
Here's
get a mug.
Virtual mug for you.
Mike, some people are saying it's not fair, but we'll give it to you. Also, Mike said that this first logo dates back to 2010, so thank you, Mike, for that.
Amazing. Very cool.
So, Ariel, maybe you want to share about our current logo that we have now.
Yeah, for sure. So our current logo, as you can see, the colors merge into that new logo. So even though there is a bit of see that the logo we have up now. Our current logo is a cross with different arrows coming together, and it keeps the same symbolism as the previous one, which highlights diversity, red being the blood of Jesus, blue, the Spirit and the movement of the Holy Spirit, green, the Father and His glory displayed throughout creation. So I think it's just beautiful how these colors and symbols were so well thought through. Until today, we see the heart of it through the life of our church. But with that said, it's time for the great reveal. All right.
Hold on to your seats,
Hold
everyone.
on to your seats. Please turn your eyes to the screen for the new logo.
All right, let me tell you why this is the best logo you've ever seen in your life, right? So There's a lot of symbolism in this. So firstly, just note, it resembles the current logo. We didn't, for some reason, weren't able to get the current logo. Well, this is current as of right now. The previous one on the screen. But you can, the actual figure of the cross resembles exactly, in some ways, the old cross. So it bears a resemblance. The lettering is kind of largely the same. So let me just talk you through some of the symbolism behind that particular logo. So let's just focus on the cross element. So firstly, it's a cross, important because, well, you know why the cross is important. It's our Rosebank cross that we recognize. But really cool thing, and this is an important design feature behind this cross, and that is that the cross is actually made up of a negative space, made up of the four corners or four arrows. So the actual cross you're seeing in black is made up of those four corners that you're seeing. And that's really deliberate. What that's symbolizing is this idea of these four corners coming together. So as people come together kind of around the cross, that's church. It's people gathering around the idea of Jesus. But also as they come together sort of around the cross, they're also sort of displaying the cross. So this is a really intentional design feature around this. It's this idea of, if you like, gospel doctrine and gospel culture. So coming together, gospel doctrine around the cross, and then gospel culture as we come together. It's seen in the way that we behave to one another. Cool, right? Not just four cool corners, the cross made up of these movements of parts coming together. But not just any people coming together. Shout out to Jenny, our missions director, who's the only one I think who really would have thought about this, but when she saw it, Jen, I don't know if you remember, but said that it represents the four corners. Also, it's like the four corners of the globe, which is, you know, the globe doesn't have corners, but in the biblical literature, it is often described like Book of Revelation as the four angels and the four spirits from the four ends of the church. And in the Bible, the four corners refers to diversity. It's always this image of if the four corners are coming together, it's this idea of embracing all kinds of people from across the globe. But that's not all behind that symbolism. So you've got the coming together to kind of around the cross and to display the cross. Then you've also got the sharp points. Shout out to Margie, I know she's here somewhere, but she spotted this as well, is not only is there coming together with the cross, the sharp points on the side. So the points on the side and the point at the top and the bottom. To be honest, when we first looked at it, we're like, man, that's like super sharp. And then Margie was like, hey, but that shows outwards direction and movement. And so it's this sense of not only is it a coming together, but there's also a sense of outward mobility in that cross. And then just on a note on color. So our designer, Jaime is here somewhere. Jaime, are you around? Hey? Oh, in the control room. Man, you'll just need to give an applause to this guy. He has been like not sleeping for days. A lot of what you're going to see tonight is his work on the slides, and I'll tell you more about it. But anyway, he was designer of this, and he's got all the theory around colors, etc. So just a few quick things around the blue-green kind of vibe. So kind of away from the multicolors. These days, multicolors is kind of, you know, in logos, apparently it's kind of fun, so Google kind of vibe, and we are a kind of fun church. But it's a kind of trimming it down a little bit. So these two kind of blue-green sort of elements are not only neutral, color-wise, in design theory, but also remnant from our old logo. There's those two colors coming together. It's also fresh, this idea of fresh and life. I may be stretching this a bit too far, but it's also this idea of heavens and earth, you know, green being the earth and blue being the heavens, which is this biblical idiom. Heavens and earth, it's like a figure of speech called like a merismus. It's like these two opposite ends, like everything in between. So it's this idea, I'm going to start preaching a sermon now, so I need to stop. But there is a lot of just kind of symbolism into this logo. So hope you love that. Largely what you're going to see, though, is a black and white version of that, because a lot of what the logo is on are these colored backgrounds, but where we have opportunity to show some color, we will. But mostly what you'll see is this really neat black on white or white on black kind of logo. So that's kind of fresh logo that you'll see kind of as of this Sunday, which if you're still tracking with kind of the metaphor idea, is sort of the badge on the car has gone over a little makeover. So that was what part of what we wanted to reveal to you tonight, fresh identity. What about the paintwork on the car, the seats of the car, the carpets of the car? So refreshed facilities. So I'm going to take you through, myself and others will take you through some plans that we have to freshen up our campus here a little bit. So we've got lots of plans for you. That's a large part of what tonight is, ways to freshen up our campus. But before I get into some of those plans, Candice and Ariel will come up again and walk us down memory lane. But as they're coming up, we're going to see a little clip from just a few years ago from our first kind of major upgrade, which was the building of the studio.
All right, church, so this is what you're used to seeing. Don't mind the ladders. I'm going to show you what we've been working on. Don't need that actually, I'm alone. We've been making a new place for you to enjoy church from. And I want to show you what we've done to an office in our church. We've flipped it and turned it into this. A little Rosebank Union studio, a place for us to bring you church online. So basically all we've done is taken all the tech that normally runs Sunday service and we've moved it all into this room. Here are the cameras that normally film a Sunday. There's the chair you might remember pastors sitting on when they're talking. And that's our little set. Getting a little green screen, well, blue screen ready. There's a camera on standby. We still need to do some stuff with the lights. People can sit and enjoy the church service while it's happening and filming. And then, oh, of course, we've got to have a little snacks room. Ta-da, little snacks room so we can keep ourselves going for church online for you guys. Those are lights we've taken down from the stage. Obviously sound panels and that kind of stuff on, some ambient lighting. And so this is where church is going to be coming to you guys for the next while. And it's been hard work. The room was a 2-week project. The tech was a 1-week project because on Thursday last week we filmed in the auditorium. And we flipped it in a week and got us in here to film for you guys. So we love you lots. We really pray this room is a blessing to you guys. And much love.
How cool is that? A round of applause, please. Yeah. I think just in this moment, I just wanted to say a big thank you again to our lockdown legends. That's Brett and Mike and Phil and James for making that possible, because that turnaround time was of a professional standard. But what made it really possible was God's providence in providing us an upgrade in 2016. And so if we just go to the first photo, you will see what our auditorium used to look like. That big bulkhead, the spaceship looking thing with the screens, obviously completely different lighting set. So that's what it looked like. And so Justin in 2016 put together basically a whole book on why we need to have an upgrade. I see Justin smiling then. I'd love to read that one day. Why we need to upgrade our auditorium with new lights, cameras, sound desk, or something along those lines. A lot of tech. And so this is actually the street times from the 2nd of October in 2016 when we had reached 96% of our target of 2.7 million to update, and that was 350 people that contributed to that upgrade. And so obviously at the time we didn't know in 2020 that we would be using that tech for not just for Sunday, but to build our studio, to stream church online. Now this studio gets hired out to other people. We do podcast recording, so it's really equipped us so amazingly. And so that turnaround change in 2020 from frantically recording things on the stage here. I think, sorry Phil, if we could go to a video of what church looked like just in lockdown. Richard on the stage recording videos, and then Brett and the team gave them cameras and they recorded it at home. That's one of our first videos. And then 10 weeks later, we were in the studio. I think Brett said this. He was like, I think it might have taken close to a year if we didn't have all this tech to stream church online, because this studio is of a world class, and that really is to God's providence. That's actually the first sermon that's Pentecost Sunday. So stuff is happening on Pentecost in our church. But it's amazing how God really provided for our church. And as we said, we didn't know what we were facing, but it really made it possible for us to have church of such a high quality, but to send it to around the world. And so I think, we're just so grateful for God and just celebrating Him for what He has done in his church here. And we have just such great expectation of what he will do. And so it's just quickly, so this was them tearing down the bulkhead, and you can see like our old posters up, really going to town, tearing that down, putting up the new lights. And then I think the next photo, you'll see what it looked like. That's that first Sunday with the screens, the projectors, the lights. It just really is so amazing. And that is all glory to God that he was able to provide that then, and that got us through today. And so, yes, this venue has massively been enhanced. So not just refreshed, it's been enhanced. And there's been lots of things around our church that we're not going to necessarily speak about tonight, but Ariel and I just want to share a few highlights of other areas in our church that have been refreshed or enhanced. And so I'm just going to go, if we could just take away that photo from now, please, Phil. I just want to share a highlight from our chapel. So I don't know how recently anyone has been in there. It is one of my favorite venues in the church. It holds such sentimental value for me, my grandfather's funeral was in there, but it was also like a great place that in Easter on Saturdays, that Easter Saturday, that's where me and my sister like prayed there, and it's just a wonderful venue. And then I found out super recently that lots of the stained glass windows and all the pews are from our third church venue. So that is from our church when it was actually in Rosebank on Craddock Avenue. And so that has been stewarded, well looked after and cared for, and now we have it in our current chapel now. And so it just shows you this stewarding of resources that, you might just think it's a pew, it's furniture, but it's something that we've invested in way back then, 50 years ago, I'm not sure, and we're still using today, and that is just amazing how God again has worked that out. And so I think a cool story for our very unique church to have a chapel. It is a separate venue to do like funerals and weddings. Lots of churches don't have that, and so lots of churches in our upgrade of the chapel have been using it for funerals and for weddings. So in the upgrade of our chapel, we've put in new computers and screens so that people are able to have a live-streamed funeral, a live-streamed wedding, or an event within there. And so it's just it's a great way that we have been blessed so that we can bless our community and other churches. And I actually got an email on Monday from a girl in Australia. She wasn't able to attend her grand's funeral, but she was able to join in on the live stream. There was worship at the bottom. That's a software that we've purchased so that people can sing along at funerals and feel like they're a part of it. And so that was a big thing for her, that she felt as if she was a part of it, and she can go back and watch that. And that's only really been possible because of that upgrade. Or rather, using the correct terms, enhanced venue. And so, again, we're just grateful that we've been able to do that, and we're able to bless families and other churches in that. And so, the chapel's a sentimental place, not just for me, but I'm sure many other people who sat possibly in that pew when it was in Rosebank, and now it's a seat for many people who have cried or have a joyous celebration of a wedding. And so it's an important thing, that space, and we hope to continue to steward it really well. And with our new technology, we're able to just steward that enhance as well.
Yeah, that's amazing, Candace. I think when we look at everything around us, it's the little details that we put together. It's like all of these things are a means to an end. They're not just a thing for the sake of the thing, but like you said, it has deep sentimental value. It has, just an ability to bring people together. And I think one of the ways that we've been able to do that was with our mustard seeds room. And I'm a bit biased with this one because I'm part of kids ministry, but we have had such good feedback from mothers who have felt seen. And I think sometimes, firstly, changing it from cry room, it's just like cry seems a little bit dismissive, like go cry over there. But that's not what we're trying to do, is to allow moms to realize that they're still part of the church, to make them feel part of the service, that they can be there and still watch the sermon, the paint on the wall, the toys that we put in there, the books, the resources.
The couches. It's so lovely up there.
And with you saying the couches, I just love how it's always people from the church family coming together to make these things happen. Like, Ansune had the brilliant idea of starting it, but it was just like people within the congregation who banded together and say, we back this and we want to do this, giving their resources, their time, their energy to make that a reality. And actually found out that there's been a family recently who have started coming to church because of the Mustard Seeds Room. And I think that's brilliant, where it's just, they just feel like coming in here, it's not a space that is far away from the rest of the church, and I'm here in exile until my child is grown enough to be part of this service, but they can sit here and be part of just part of the church. So I think even the name Mustard Seeds is so symbolic, where it's again not dismissive, but it's a start of something, it's a roots of something that is ready to grow. So I think that is amazing.
Yeah. So let's take a trip now down memory lane to see our venues. This is the time to show that very cool photo of Jerry. He is on our campus team. He has a cool new role, which I'm so sad I forgot the title of. But this is him way back when. I wish I had the date. I'm assuming 2000 something. Yeah. This is the street cafe, what it originally looked like. How great are those letters, bright and colorful street cafe so with cool. A smiling toast poster.
And a smiling Jerry.
And a smiling Jerry. You can see the old logo as well. And so you can just see that it's been a well-loved venue. You can see the next photo coming up. That's people having lunch. There you can see Jenny Curtin. Hey, Jenny. So it looks very similar to what we have now. I mean, you'll see the next photo, there was an upgrade for just refreshing that space. They put in, wooden floors, more tables and chairs, better lighting. And you can just see another, the green paint, a proper sign. And then our next photo, I don't know if you guys remember this, that is our exchange building before it got upgraded. So my sister's nodding. Her and I used to do brownies in that building. It had a swimming pool, but again there was a big upgrade in 2010 to get it to what it is now. And so it's just again God's faithfully providing that. Our next photo is actually from. Is this Richard's graduation? Oh, Richard attended a graduation in our church, and so this is obviously what it looked like with that bulkhead and the posters, and also, I don't know if you guys noticed, there were different lights in the auditorium as well. They were hanging lights, so that's actually just really cool to see that, and then you see the stage is much bigger. And then that's a poster. How cool is that? Can you imagine someone cutting out all those little people there? 40 days of community. Again, you can see our church was really big on community then and is really big on community now. Shout out Pastors Y. Those are just a couple of photos. You can find more of those just on our social media. I've been really going crazy posting them. So please check that out. I think it's incredible to always look back, like we said, because it makes us realize just how much, firstly, we, like as a church, has been a great steward of what God has given us. These things have served people so well. And I think as we see, the refreshing over time has given us an opportunity to create spaces and atmospheres where people can be community. So, it's brilliant. And I think for me, coming in as a new person, it's just seeing all of this, to know the history of it, just makes you feel the sense of, man, I'm part of something much bigger than myself, which is, really beautiful. Yeah. All right, let's call up Richard.
All right, so after looking back a little bit, let's look forward. So how this whole project started out is end of last year, EGB kind of said to us, because we've been wanting to do all these little things, they're like, guys, just can you make a list of all the things? So we went and did a walk around the campus and basically looked out for two things. So number one, just made a list of everything that's really tatty, that's old, that's kind of broken, that needed to be fixed. So there's a list of just things that are tired now. It's not a small list. It is quite a long list. This church is 23 years old. And if you think about it, most people, if you've been in your house for 23 years, man, there's some stuff you've needed to work on. I've been in my house for 6 months and I'm still working on stuff. So there's just a list of things that over the years just either haven't had the finances to do them because they've been really expensive or just have gone unnoticed. So a big list of things that needed to be fixed. But then secondly, also just looked at kind of dreaming, like what kinds of things could we do to consolidate some of the ministry growth and the freshness in ministry that we had seen, but also position ourselves for more growth as a church. So we came up with this list, this big list. And the list is a mix of kind of these two terms that team have been using. Well done, guys. But firstly, number one, just renewing items. So renewing is kind of a fancy word for fixing, for maintenance, but it's kind of revive, restore, reinvigorate, like things that need some life brought back into them. And then secondly, enhancements. So just upgrades or improvements that we really need to make on the facility here. So that's what this project is. It's a mixture of renewing items and enhancement items. So we're going to take you through the whole list of things that some of the things we just have to do because of it's old and broken, but a whole lot of things that we just love to do. So we can take you through the list. Just warning, it's a long list. Second warning, there is a really big number at the end of the list. So we're going to give you a tour, and it's kind of going to be a little bit of a virtual walkthrough, right? So that's how we're going to do this. So let's picture with me that you're kind of driving towards the church. And so you come to that very strategic intersection that just, when I was looking at, coming to Rosebank, just like, man, everybody knows where Rosebank Union Church is, even though it's not in Rosebank, because of the visibility of this intersection. So if you're at the intersection, this is what you'll see. If you can throw up that photo, Phil, of the intersection. So I don't know, if these are things that you notice, but once you see some things, you cannot unsee them. So that's kind of a second warning here. So first of all, just notice the branding, if you like, the signage, Rosebank Union Church. Because of our little walk down memory lane, you'll know that that's a few logos back, right? And it's kind of, once you see this, but it's kind of screaming at you a little bit, it's Rosebank Union Church, and so kind of need to just reformat that along the lines of kind of where we are, like Rosebank Union Church. And secondly, that sign. Let's just talk about the sign for a little bit. I mean, right now there's a really famous person on the sign, so that's awesome. You know who the famous person is? I'm not talking about Dave here. More famous than Dave, but it's not a whole person, it's a foot. Guys, you know whose foot? There's a foot underneath that sign. You know whose foot that is? Small ass foot, y'all. That is Kristen's foot over there, so love that her foot is displayed for all of Joburg to see. But this sign, man, we need a new sign, and we need a new working electronic sign. I know there's a lot to do with this, and it's expensive, but everybody knows the strategic value of this intersection and how much it's worth to kind of be displaying yourself there. And we just this year were offered quite a large amount of money from some advertisers who wanted to rent space on our building in order to kind of project their products into the intersection. And you can be rest assured, we said no, even though it was a large amount that they're offering, because everybody knows just how much traffic. People are forced to pause there for a significant period of time, thousands of people every day. Imagine if we could project positivity into this intersection. I'm not even talking so much about just kind of us and displaying what we do. I'm talking about projecting positivity into Joburg. So that was definitely on the dream list for me to do. So that's as you're driving towards the church, you see it. Now let's move to the actual entrance of the church building. Again, warning, once you see these things, you cannot unsee them. So you drive up to the gate, so you've decided, okay, I'm going to come and make an entrance to the church. And this is kind of what you'll see. So let me just point out some things. Firstly, notice. Okay, forget about the big hole, right? We all know that hole. This is recent footage. But even before the big hole, notice 3 different building materials in the gates. I mean, I don't know why. I'm not really that OCD, I promise you. But like the left gate is the bricks with the signage, then the guard hat is stone, and then the right-hand side is another kind of bricks. The signage is there, but there's a borehole sign, and there's like a fire hydrant in the way. And the guard hats, I know that was a recent thing, and that's a really nice guard hat, and we'll keep that. But with that little roof structure, which I think was designed that way to connect with the bell tower, I think, but kind of looks a little dated and maybe resembles Coptic church a little bit, kind of these days. But guys, this is our first impression. This is the first impression when somebody decides they're going to drive into our space. Like, I get it. A lot of people, when I was sharing this with elders, like, man, I've never, I don't even see. I get it, but it's our first impression. And we want to put a good foot forward here. It's also the place in our building where our actual identity is displayed. That's where our logo is. It's actually the only part of the building. So this is one of the things that we'd like to do first, to go in with the new identity of the church. So we've had an architect get to work on a lot of crazy cool plans that we're going to take you through tonight. So I'm going to show you in a moment an architect's image of what could be done here. And just note, these are not final signed off construction drawings. There's a lot of input and things that we're going to get along the way, but it's actually a very real picture of what we think we could be doing in some of these spaces. So if you could put up the sign, I'll just make the sounds for you. You can scroll through some of those images, and I'll just point out some highlights to you. Maybe stay there. That's a good one. But you've got the kind of just gates on both sides. Notice pedestrian gate. That's just a nice feature. We're not just a church for people who can drive cars, but a pedestrian gate. We've got our new logo on the side here. We've got the cross in the middle, which our architect was just kind of for hymns, big kind of symbolism when you drive into the church. There's a display of the cross. We'll talk about gospel people and Ab Evangeli a little bit later. But that's just like an artist representation of what this could look like. So that's the entrance of the church, and that's as you're coming down the intersection, sign and the logo up on the building. To take you through the rest of the items on this long list and some more great images of what we think we should do and what we can do in this building, I'm going to call up in a moment my partner in crime in these projects, which is Pastor Brett. And the reason Brett is involved here is a lot of the ideas that you're going to see of Brett's ideas. He just has a lot of these ideas flowing out of him. He has found me to be a very willing, I think, accomplice in this, and is largely the one who probably oversee a lot of the projects. He has overseen a lot of the projects that we've done already. It's not quite something in his job description, but is in his wheelhouse. And so without further ado, welcome up Brett to take you through the rest.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks, guys. And thank you so much. Yeah, I've been dreaming, and we actually had a joke in a meeting the other day about someone needing access to the bank account when Moira and Shelley aren't here. And I put my hands up. I said, choose me. And Moira said, not a chance. You'll spend all our money because I have too many ideas. But I've been dreaming about what this church can be. It's been my home for so long. I was saved here, discipled here, ordained here, and I would love to dream one day that my kids could come through this church, God willing. That's not an announcement, don't get too excited. My kids one day could enjoy this church and be blessed by it as I have been. And so I'm going to stick with Richard's analogy a little bit here with the car. So stick with me. So we've seen this amazing new sign of positivity coming to Santon Drive. You've chosen to pull into our church. You come through Ab Evangeli, through the front gates, under the foot of the cross, park your car just outside the chapel. And the first thing you do, it's Sunday, we're a house of worship. You walk through and into this wonderful auditorium. This beautiful auditorium that has kept us it has been served us for so long. And so this is the cabin of the car, right, following Richard's analogy. And so you picture the seats of your car, right? You've climbed into this wonderful car that served you for so long. You've overhauled the engine, you've got some direction, and now you're on your journey, and you look around and you think, man, these seats are a bit tatty. They're a bit old. In fact, there's some seats, it's a big car, that you don't sit in, because if you do, you just fall straight through to the road. In fact, it's these ones over here, so don't sit in those seats when you're driving. And it's just, they're old. They have seen many services. I don't know what you were thinking. And it's time for some new seats. I can't remember what the person told us who quoted us on these seats, but those wonderful new ones down there, you do need to go try them. He told us it's the guys they're the same company that did this originally. Yeah, and he asked him how many revolutions should these have, and I kind of worked out in my head. I was like, that means they should have finished like 5 years ago. So we've got extra legs out of these chairs, and that's wonderful. But go and try these wonderful new chairs there, and there's a surprise when you stand up. I'll leave you to figure out the surprise. So we need new chairs. But in this beautiful analogy of this wonderful new car, you've put new seats into your car. You haven't just reupholstered. You've taken out the old ones, put in some new ones. But now you start to notice the carpet looks really sad. What you used to do is you kind of take out the little foot parts and you like knock it and get the dust out. But you've kind of stopped doing that because, man, it's just really old. And there's some stains in there that you don't even know what caused those stains. And in fact, because you put new chairs in, there's old holes where the chairs were bolted in. And there's new holes for the new chairs. And so it's just sad. And so I would love for you to look around at the carpet. I actually, Dave Irving, I've seen him on Sundays. He comes with his carpet cutting scissors. You get those. And he comes and cuts the phrase off for us out of his own goodwill because they're just sad. But just think of the wonderful feet that these carpets have seen, that have allowed people to walk into our church, enjoy a wonderful service, and hear the gospel message preached. They have served us well, and it's time for some new carpets to serve us well too. Now, you're in this car, you've got new seats, you've got this fresh new carpet, it's all looking really trim, but it's a freezing cold Joburg morning. And so, man, you are chilly. So you turn that aircon on, but it only works on the right-hand side of the car. So your passenger unlocks, that doesn't work. There's only hot air blowing out here. But in fact, the way you get hot air out of this car is by waking up at 4 a.m. and starting the engine, going back to bed so that it's warm by 8 a.m. That's how our aircon works here. It's on a timer switch for the months of June and July to come on at 4 a.m. And when it kicks in, it draws 60 kilowatts, that's a lot apparently. But it's a power-hungry old giant. And so I've actually got a little picture for you guys, fun time. Here's a little picture that you can put up for our aircons. The question that I have for you, there you go. All right, so that is Josh. He is helping us out while Ansane is on maternity leave. He's a legend. And now this aircon unit, pretty big, right? That's half. That's just the right-hand side one. That's the one that works. Yeah, that's the one sitting on that side of the roof. The left-hand one struggles. Who is older in this photo? Have a guess. The aircon. How old is Josh? He's 20. The aircon is 23 years. And it is time, it's sad, it's time for a new aircon. And so that is part of what we would like to do in upgrading here is get us a brand new aircon that doesn't trip half the time. And you only realize at 6 a.m. when Phil arrives and it's freezing cold in here. It's old technology and it's time for a new one. And we can't keep repairing it kind of monthly. And then the last little upgrade that we want to do in this little cabin is the sound system. Now, in the sound system, you're probably thinking just loud, more music. That's not where I'm going. Think of this, all right? You're in this wonderful car, you're on this journey, overhauled your engine, it's humming. And you think, I want to just Bluetooth some music quickly to my thing. I mean, every car has Bluetooth now, right? But this car doesn't. This car actually doesn't even have an aux cable. But your phone doesn't have an aux cable anyway. So what you do is you pull out your cassette and you throw that thing in and you jam to like some 1960s tunes. That's kind of what we're working with here. Our sound desk, and I'm just talking about our sound desk, the very brain of what operates our sound system in this auditorium is just old. There have been times, and I need to confess this to the Lord, that I have prayed that the power surges of Eskom would just fry it, and then insurance would give us a new one. But that hasn't happened yet. But we are at the very limits of what our sound desk can do. And so what we would like to do is move our sound system or PA system into an in-ear monitoring system. And I'm not going to get too technical here, but what that means is our bands, often, notice this when you come on a Sunday, there are speakers on the stage as well that face the musicians, plus these speakers here that you guys are hearing the sound from. And so what that is when a musician's playing, I know nothing about music, so I'm probably going to get this very wrong. But when a musician's playing music, he or she needs to hear certain elements of the band to be able to play along. And so Phil is giving them certain different things while they're playing. And so that's creating quite a lot of noise or sound while that's happening. So then what the PA system does, the ones you are hearing, is competing with what's happening on stage. And so we have to increase the volume to get the sound sounding lacquer in this hall. And so by removing these on-stage things and moving to in-ear monitors where the musician just has an earphone attached to their back, they will be able, Phil can mix a clean and, believe it or not, even softer mix. What this will allow is us to hear our congregation singing more every Sunday. We will be able to hear people singing, and I have a long for that. I mean, on Sunday I heard it. There were 440 people in this auditorium. It was beautiful, but we want to hear it all the time. What that'll also do is it'll clean up our sound when we're streaming our worship. At the moment, it's just here you go online, we love you, this is the best we can do, we run out of channels. But what we could do with the new sound desk is really make it beautiful for our online congregation. And so that's the overhaul, that's the refreshing, and to be honest, a little bit of enhancing of what we will want to do in this auditorium. Now, I'm going to leave the car metaphor behind now, and we're going to head out of the auditorium. You just had a wonderful worship service. The sound was humming, the carpets were fresh, the seat was fantastic, the aircon was toasty. And now it's after the service, Richard or Justin or someone has preached a cracker of a sermon, and you're going to head out for a cup of coffee with your friends and family. And so our street cafe has gone through quite a few changes before. That photo you guys saw earlier, what it looks like now really is from 2008. And really, it is a beautiful venue, and we are so blessed to have a place like this for people to go after a service to enjoy a cup of coffee. This really is a critical space in the life of our church, and so we want to love it well, and we really believe that if we do it right, this space can enhance people's experience of our church. And so that's what it currently looks like. From this angle, this is what it could look like. So there we go, that's awesome. So what we want to do here is we want to drop down the barriers that are kind of enclosing the street cafe, open it up, give it a fresher, lighter look, and just create more open space. And we can head across to the next photo. Here you can see I took that I think this morning or yesterday. Again, those are the barriers and everything. And what we want to do is why we want to open it up is to connect the space into the whole area of our street cafe, creating more space for fellowship. So this is what this option could look like in the future. Open up, swinging it through right to the right. Pretty cool, eh? And so there's a little cool thing happening on the right. We'll get there in a second. But have a look through the front for me. Those are currently windows. What we want to do is turn those into folding, stacking doors so that we connect the amphitheater to the wonderful street and facility that we have here. So those folding, stacking doors would open right open, and just picture a Sunday of people sitting from that first white chair all the way out to a really cool new jungle gym that's hiding in the background. Go through to the next one for me, please. That's what that area currently looks like. It's our old welcome center. It was also once a library, and the staff, we used to hang out there when we had staff tea at 10:30, I think, back in the day. Let's have a look at what that place could look like. So we want to knock through those walls straight into and create a second coffee space, a second coffee bar. And again, connecting the whole space to everything. And I want to quickly talk to these things. Part of the big reason that we want to knock through, open up, smash down, create wider spaces is so that there is a greater space for fellowship. What you can't see in here is us creating a free coffee space, coffee bar as well for people to go and get from. And so we want to try to break down the barriers of the street cafe being closed off and saying, if you paid for something, you can sit here, but if you didn't pay for something, you can sit over there. It's a free, open space. If you bought a coffee at the street cafe, or if you just got some free tea and coffee on your way out, this space is for you. It's for you and your church family to sit down after service and enjoy. So we're trying to break down barriers, smash down the dividing wall of hostility. That's what I spoke about the last time I was up here. And really bring our community together. And so I'm going to take us outside now out into, so that's that's the window looking into our old welcome center / new coffee bar and stuff on the right. Let's check out what it could look like. So, folding stacking doors connecting into the outside, a fold-down coffee bar area, a space for parents, young people, old people, everybody to sit together and have a cup of coffee in this wonderfully new designed space. And so I think the amphitheater is one of the most underutilized areas of our church. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility. We started doing outdoor services in it, and we love that facility. So we want to do what we're doing here to use it more. So that's what it currently looks like. That jungle gym has served people really well. We took the slide away because it was super broken and dangerous. So this is what it could look like. So what you'll notice, go back one photo very quickly. It's a slope with like 2 little tiers. Go to the next one. We've tiered it now into a amphitheater to allow for more seating for outdoor services, to allow for people to sit, grab a cup of tea, sit in the sun, enjoy the winter sun. And again, this is what it could look like. There's a little bit of a jungle gym on the left. Now, that's just a placeholder. I want to show you what the jungle gym could look like. We actually got someone in. I didn't know people did this, but they draw jungle gyms. So I met with the dude and I was like, hey man, in this budget, what could we do? I'd gone to Delta Cafe. And I've got some, like I'm the godfather of a little legend, and I dropped him off at this jungle gym and I thought, man, this is a cool jungle gym. I want a cooler one. And so this is what the jungle gym could look like. Given the space, we would probably move it where the pretend one was against the left-hand side of the amphitheater so that there's nice open space still for everyone. We wouldn't put it in the center. And how I envision this happening is young families grabbing a coffee or going to the coffee bar, going outside and having their kids just have an absolute blast on this jungle gym while they sit, have a cup of coffee, talk about the sermon, talk about what's going on in their lives, and while their children have an epic time. And how I hope this happens is parents say, come guys, it's time to go home. And they say, man, I love this place. I don't want to go home, mom and dad. Or next week, Sunday, mom, will you bring me please to Sunday school? Because it is a jam. And so that's what we envision for happening there. And like I said, I really do hope and pray that one day, as I think through these things, as the next generation pastor, my job currently is to think through the next generation of our church. But really my ministry sits around the current generation. You know, I'm ministering to young adults and students. They're my generation. They're not yet, they will be the next generation. And so as I think through, I think I wouldn't be doing my job any service if I didn't think through what could this church be like for the next generation. When the people I'm discipling are married and they've got children, when our youth are now thinking about, hey, I think I want to meet someone at this church who I could potentially marry and have children with. How will those people use these facilities? And that's something that's really driven me to think of these ideas. How will the next generation of our church use these facilities and make this church their home? And that's driven a lot of why these ideas that we've come up with. And so while we're talking about the current generation that will be the next generation, let's go have a look at the exchange. So I'm not sure if many of you would know this, but you'd have to park around the back of the church over here to see this. But the exchange was built. It is an enigma of a building. I absolutely love it. I love it. It is a brilliant facility. And man, the young adult nights that we've had there, the Sunday morning kids ministry, the youth ministry on a Friday night, it is a fantastic venue. But we have been using it incorrectly, number one, because we go through the back of the exchange. It was actually built with the front. This is the front. You're looking at the front, like the design, the like beautiful like tower thing that matches our bell tower. They've put it at the front of the building, but you never see it because we always go through the back. And so we want to re-envision the front for what it could look like one day and actually use this as the front entrance for our kids. Let's have a look at what it could look like. And so this is how we could see our our exchange being used. This whole area from where the exchange starts all the way around to the back of the church is reserved family parking. Like when you go to malls, you'll see it's blue. That's for families only. We want to reserve that parking for families. We want to move the entrance away from the street, because currently what happens is we put up a little gazebo, there's some stands, there's a long line that's like kind of snakes into the road, and people are driving, stopping, driving, waiting for families to cross. We want to move that part away from like the busy intersection of our church, round to the side. So there's family parking all the way down here. It's a traffic calming area, and people and parents can walk their kids up into the exchange. You'll notice there's a few things we've changed here. So there's actually a natural front door, kind of where you see those RUC Kids banners. So what would happen is we check our kids in here. It's much safer. It's a controlled entrance, and once they've passed through, they've been checked in, they would hit a right up into the front door of our exchange, and on the left they'd go to Bible Adventure Club if they are under the age of 4, under the age of 5. Thank you, Ariel. And then if they are Bible Adventure, if they're explorers, they'll head up the stairs right into the grade 0 to 4 hall. And what we've done is we've reclaimed some land. I'll show you in a drone shot in a second, and put a jungle gym out there for our 0 to 4s so that they've got a space to play. Because believe it or not, we are running out of space. In fact, pre-COVID, we had run out of space. So we're trying to claim back some natural ground space for our children. And then if you are a grade 5, 6, or 7, you would have been meeting Ariel at the front here to come through for worship, and afterwards head back up to the exchange. And so it increases the safety of our kids. It's we're reclaiming some space. It's just way more beautiful, and also I think for the parents, it's a parent-facing space. I think for parents, they would want to bring their children because they can see we were ready for them. We didn't just throw up a gazebo and kind of hope for the best. We were ready to receive them. And so if you can have a quick look at this drone footage, I want to walk you through some of the exchange. So there's our exchange on the top right. Really, again, we've just done some restorative work to it, so it's looking good. There's that piece of land to the right, and then there's that kind of brown patch. And there you go, that brown patch there. So we want to push that retaining wall out, gain a whole lot of ground, put our jungle gym there for the kids to play on. That ground at the top right is kind of like a sloping 3-phase hill. We want to level that out, create just 2 slopes there on the right there. Take out some plants so that there's almost more of a field feeling. There's a lighthouse at the top right. I'm going to get there in just a second. But we want to level those places out so that there's more space for the kids to run and have an absolute blast. And so while I'm talking about the exchange, the last little thing I want to tell you about is the Lighthouse. So the Lighthouse is a venue left over from that very first photo that Candace showed us. And now that you've shown us that photo, I can actually picture why the photo I'm going to show in a second looks the way it does. And so if you can show me the photo of Lighthouse, there you go. So that's the Lighthouse. Currently, it's I don't really know. We just kind of, when we run out of space, we go there. There's a weird wall in the middle. We want to take that wall out. We want to open space up and actually make it a place we can teach children in. But behind the wall on the right, did you know that if you ever wanted to go to the exchange and have a bath, you could? Next photo, please. That's the bathroom left over from the 1920s house. And it's weird. It's just so weird that we have a bath and a shower and a brown toilet. You can even put your toiletries in there if you want it. So if anyone's looking for a place to rent, please talk to me. Don't tell Richard I've said that. And what we want to do here, guys, is there's only one adult male toilet in all of Exchange. And so what we want to do is convert this current bathroom into a toilets for males and females, knock through that wall, and by doing this, we will gain some extra floor space for teaching, a new venue, more toilets, and just a great space for our kids, and even a venue to rent out. Now, one of the things I mentioned is we have been running out of space. And so I'm coming to the last area that we really want to enhance and refresh. As I think about our kids, the ministry that I absolutely love, our youth ministry and our young adults ministry, we currently share this venue all together. So Wednesday nights, the young adults are in there. Friday nights, our youth are in there. And Squad 116, our preteens are there as well. And then Sundays, it's full use for our kids ministry. And so what we really want to do here is refresh our Jerusalem Hall to create a unique space for our youth on a Friday night and our young adults on a Wednesday. So that's what it currently looks like. This is what it could look like. So we're going to raise the roof, gaining a meter of volume. We'll flip it from portrait to landscape, so you don't walk in at the front, you walk in at the back of the building. So that's, as you walk in, instead of the stage being on your left, you're going to look forward to the front. There's a little sound desk to the right. There's some couches for hanging out. Let's have a look at another view. That's what it currently looks like from the other side, and this is what it could look from that side. And what we envision here, church, is just a space dedicated for our youth and young adults, but at the same time, still the venue that we use for big church gatherings. It could hold about 250 people. Maybe even things like this would happen in there. We would upgrade our tech. We would still use it for those big leader breakfasts, but it would be a dedicated space for our youth and our young adults. Because this is what happens on a Friday night when we all are using, well, and our youth and preteens are using the same venue. There's this beautiful dance that happens on a Friday night where Ariel is allowed to use this part from 6 until like 6:30 when the youth start arriving. And so Ariel then has to like shepherd her preteens, there's about 20 of them, into the Lighthouse with that weird bathroom while the youth start arriving to use the stuff. And then once they start going out to the exchange hall, then we can pull them back to come play. And then there's this weird crossover where the 18-year-olds are having fun with the 10-year-olds, like playing pool, and it doesn't work. But we don't have really anywhere else for our youth to go on a Friday night. And so how we see this working is our youth, by giving them a dedicated space, the youth will have a space to grow in the Jerusalem Hall on Friday nights. Our preteens ministry and potentially even more Friday night ministries within our kids ministry have space now to grow. And our young adults don't have to cram. There's about 100 of us when we all meet together on a Wednesday night. We don't all have to cram in a venue that was designed for 80 people. And we also don't have to go down into classrooms that were designed for 4-year-olds. I wish I had photos of my young adults sitting on these like little chairs. It's really cute. And it's nice for them to know what their kids will experience one day. But to be honest, we would love to have our own space, a space for us to grow and enjoy as the young adults ministry. And so that's really a lot of what we're hoping to do, church. A lot of facility refreshing, facility enhancement to hopefully allow for growth. Because before COVID hit, our Sundays ministry was already to the rafters. There was no ways we could fit more people in the exchange. Our kids ministry had taken it all up. And what we would also love to do in allowing these enhancements is we want to launch something for our teens on a Sunday at our 10 a.m. service. We are desperate to have a space for our teenagers, our high schoolers, our kids in youth ministry to connect over God's word on a Sunday morning, but we have nowhere to put them. And so what we see this venue upgrade or enhancement doing for that is giving them a space to meet after the service, giving them a space to connect with Ryan, myself, and giving them a space to grow and hopefully come back on a Friday. Our Friday nights will always be our main youth ministry night. And I see that venue being a great space for growth for them. But I also see it as a great space as connecting with our teens who come on a Sunday morning to plug them in to our Friday night ministry. And so this is a little bit of what's been cooking in my head for a couple of years now. And I just, like I said, this church has really been my home. Rosebank Union Church is really kind of the only expression of Christianity that I have ever truly held to. And I long to stick around long enough to see my kids, God willing, enjoy this place and be transformed by attending in this beautiful space and having an open heart to the work of Jesus in these places. And so as I think for the next generation, I pray and hope that what you would do, because again, these, like Richard said, aren't signed off building plans. What you would do in the weeks and months to come on a Sunday, walk around, have a look where things may be looking a bit tatty, and dream with me, dream with us as we think what this church could be in the years to come. Thank you.
How great was that, church family? Can we get another round of applause? Woo! Thank you. People online, can I see those emojis? No, I'm kidding. So that is something we have been planning for quite a long time, and so we're just so excited to have shared that with you. Feel like a breath of air, and I can not be always scared. I'm going to say a secret or whatever. Not that it's a secret. Anyway, so just for a little bit of light, I just want to encourage you guys to try out our seats. Riz, can we maybe get a wide angle of our little seat setup? So it's the same company that did the seats that we have here currently, and we sat on a good amount of numbers, and we've the lighting. Brad, can we have more house lights? We want to try and get these seats up. They are, I'm going to nerd out on the seats a bit. For those watching online, you're just going to have to come on a Sunday and try them out. They're like of a, there we go. Thank you, Brad. They're a foam that's going to last so much longer than the seats that we currently have. You won't have a risk of falling through them if you do sit on them. They're comfortable, and they're fire retardant as well, which is a word I learned. And so it's it's going to be a really good thing for our church. So please go and check them out. But I think for a little bit of a fun time, we're having a quiz, everyone. Woo!
Okay, so we're going to have a few questions come up on screen regarding our church and the upgrades and all of that, the enhancements. So if we can have that slide up, please. Okay, so our first question, before we start, I feel like I'm back in kids ministry.
Yes,
y'all
Ariel.
are grown-ups. These are the rules. Okay, so what you can do is we're going to give you the question and then the option for A or B. So if you think the answer is A or B, stand up as I read out the answer.
Get that blood flowing. You've been standing for a while.
Just to get your
sitting
blood flowing, yeah? Okay, so first question is, how many chairs are currently in the auditorium? So our options are 1,069 and 978. So who thinks it's A? 1,069. Woo, child. 1,069. Okay,
okay, interesting.
Okay.
Those online, you can maybe just comment. Oh, there we go. People are saying A, B, getting quite a lot of A's online.
Okay, let's go. Who's thinking B, 978? Whoa, the majority.
Oh, wow, quite. Okay.
All right, so our answer is, drum roll, Candace.
A, 1,096. If you saw Justin stand up, I feel like that's a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah, everyone watch Justin.
Yeah. People online, Justin just told us the seats have increased because of our new ones. To our next question, number 2. If someone had come every Sunday for the last 23 years, how many hours would they have sat in a seat for? Question A. I think I said that right. Question A, is it 949 hours or 1,794 hours?
Okay, let's go with...
All right.
Who's thinking A?
We worked this out. It's 1.5. We did an average of 1.5 hours.
1.5. Okay, so should we do the
Yes.
options? Option A, if you think it's 947 hours, get on your feet. Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Unanimous. So B, everybody, 1,794.
Woo! Everyone's standing. Thank you. And
Everyone
online. Thank
online.
You.
Do we
Online
have
people
people
saying
online?
B. You're
Okay.
correct.
Well done.
Well done.
Very good.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay, question 3. What original color palette was used for the walls in the main building? A, mustard yellow, maroon, navy blue, and purple. Or B, gray, cream, blue, and orange. Who is thinking it's A with the mustard yellow?
A, stand up if anyone thinks A. All right,
Okay.
we're undecided here. Online,
online? What's
we've got
everyone
1A.
1A, okay.
Okay.
And then who's thinking B? Gray, cream, blue, and orange. Okay, that's the minority of the room. Okay, our answer is actually, drum roll, brrr, it is A. Mustard yellow, maroon, navy blue, and purple. I would love to see that. I can't even picture it in my head.
Our Google Photos, there's just so many different colors. It's interesting. So I'm going to post some more on social media. So yes, it's A, everyone.
Cool,
Our next question. How many senior pastors have we had since moving into this building? A, 8. B, 3. If you are answer A, please stand up. Okay, no one's standing up. Awesome.
People know this stuff, eh?
If it's answer B, please stand up. Nice. Okay, nice, everyone. Yes, it's answer B.
Answer B. Well done, well done. Okay, next question. What year was the Exchange building launched? Was it A, 2008, or B, 2010? Let's go with A. Who thinks it's 2008? A single person thinks it's 2008. Ntombi, are you... Okay.
Ntombi and Russell think it's 2008.
Okay, so we have just like 3 people. And then who's thinking 2010 B?
Nice.
2010.
Yes, 2010. Thank
You
you so
guys
much for
are all
standing
right.
up.
Well done, well done.
Claudine said 2010. You are correct. All right, to our next question. Our current service times are 8 a.m., 10 a.m., and 5 p.m. In 2003, what were our service times? A, 9:30 and 6:30 p.m. Could you imagine the guys? 6:30 p.m. That's so late. And then B, 8, 10, and 5 p.m. So for answer A, if you think it's A, please stand up. All right, a fair amount of people in person. Someone also said A online. If you think it's answer B, please stand up. Okay, a couple of sprinklings. It's answer A, everyone.
9:30 and 6:30.
Yeah, could you imagine 6:30 starting? What time do you get home?
No vibe nights back then.
Yeah.
You get home at midnight. All
To our
right, next question. What symbol was used in the previous logo? Oh, this is easy peasy. A, a cross, or B, ribbons?
Is it a trick question?
That's the part of the trick question. Ooh, no.
What do you think it is, everyone?
The first, the oldest one we showed. Yeah, the older one. Not the current one, the older one. That's the question.
For those watching online, there's a bit of confusion here. So just to clarify, this question is the previous logo, so logo 2.
2.
No.
Logo 1.
Logo 1.
Okay, so we're looking at. Is
right.
the current logo active? The one we launched.
Yes, our current logo is active, everyone.
So previous logo.
Our previous logo.
Two previouses ago.
Okay, let's go there. Who thinks it's A? Stand up, everyone.
Cross.
So no one thinks it's A. All right. A couple of people thinking it's A. What about B? Yes, there we go, everyone.
You're all correct.
You're all correct. No, I'm kidding.
Since the question is unclear.
I think I was meaning question B. On to question number 8. How many holiday clubs were hosted in the Jerusalem Hall? A, 9, B, 14. So, can I have
Option A.
Option A.
Who thinks it's option A? 9 holiday clubs.
Stand up.
We have one
I
person
see
in the
a
back.
SY standing up.
I see someone in the back
Thank you.
too. Okay, we
a
have
couple of
Seb
people
standing up here. Okay. Who's thinking B? 14 holiday clubs.
Yes,
14.
okay.
Okay, quite a
Nice.
few.
A
The
lot of
answer
people
is
online. It's B, 14 holiday
14
clubs.
which is really that's
Yeah.
impressive.
Next,
Woo-hoo.
did you hear that, everyone? Next year, 15 in the upgraded Jerusalem
Yay.
Hall.
All right, next
right.
question.
This is just for fun.
Who is on the There should be an option 3, Pastor Brad Pitt. Okay, who is on the big signboard facing William Nicol? Is it A, Brad Pitt, B, Pastor Dave?
C
Option
should have been
A.
Kristen's foot.
Kristen's foot, yeah. It's a tricky one, this one, yeah. It's very hard to see. Who's thinking A?
Oh, people are standing up.
I see how you can make that confusion. And B, Pastor Dave.
Nice, stand up, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
Pastor Dave.
It's Pastor Dave.
Amazing.
And then our very final question. I hope this is just a joke. On average, how many times does Richard mention coffee and cycling? A, not enough times. I would say not enough. Or B, too many times. I think we all have to say A, everyone. All right, that is it from us. Thank you. Thank you, Phil, for that, getting me out of trouble. But yeah, this is the end of Ariel and I. But just thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been really fun.
Coffee and cycling. Coming up, new sermon series. Question 11, how much is this going to cost us? So let me just give you the number, what this is going to cost us. Are you ready? Just brace yourself. 12 million rand. That's what this project is worth. Now let me tell you, actually until very recently it was 16 million, but it's come down to 12 because of Roy and Brett and others have managed to come across an aircon unit, a new air unit, but that hasn't been installed and is available. It's supposed to be a new air unit, 4 million on its own. Can you believe it? It's now 1.6 million. We've got it down to 12. I've just always felt like 12, that's a good number. It's a highly symbolic number in Scripture. But let me just break down the number for you just completely. So firstly, the chairs. So we went to 2 different companies, got competitive quotes. It's the cheapest chair range, cheapest company, 3 million just for the chairs. So that's 25% of the whole project cost is just the chairs. The air unit, 1.6 million, would be 4 if we had to buy it new. Carpets, 1 million on its own. The sound part is the cheapest part of that. All of that, so the auditorium on its own is over 6 million. Isn't that crazy? I mean, that's just kind of what it costs. All of that work is just renewing work. None of that is enhancing. None of that is upgrading, except for maybe the sound desk. Although if that does give up on us, we can't get parts for it anymore. So that's half of the project cost is just that. Let me run you through all the other areas. So next, kind of the street, but all the areas of the street, plus the amphitheater, including the new jungle gym, which I've vested interest in myself. Not for me, my kids, obviously. But that area, that's 1.6 million on its own. Then the facade, so that's meaning the street facing, that word just means kind of street facing building, the building facing the street. So that's the William Nicol, that kind of area, plus the entrance to the church. We're looking at 1.2 million. The Jerusalem Hall, the same, 1.2 million, and the Exchange, 1 million. And then there's 500,000 for kind of just some maintenance at the counseling center, as well as the upstairs. If you walk in upstairs, the carpet's there. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So that's to tile that area. That's 500,000 on its own. So that's the grand total of 12 million. Now, I know that that's a large number. I think what's immediately helpful for you to get a sense of scale for that, because I guess it's big, it's depending on your point of view, but it's a big number. But for a point of reference for scale, that's less than 6 months of our operating costs as a church. And I want you to just note that, because often with these kinds of things, it seems like it's wild and extravagant. But think about your monthly operating costs for your house. So your water, electricity bill, maybe even if you add your food costs into that. 6 months, would you invest that back in your house to seriously enhance that? I mean, it's a no-brainer. You would. I think sometimes we kind of forget the scale of operation here as a church, that's kind of what it costs to kind of run this church. 6 months operating costs to invest in the next 23 years potentially. That's not as crazy a number when you put it that way, but it is still a big number. So how are we going to fund that? Quite obviously, if you've been around church for a little bit, heard our finance updates, we don't have budget apportioned to this. And that's actually been the problem. If we had been setting aside money for this every year, we could have been investing back into some of these big areas like chairs and aircon units, etc., that just do have a lifespan to them. But we haven't been able to do that. In future, the plan is to use any income that we get through renting of our facilities to plow that straight back to projects like this. And let me tell you, that number's quite high. That could be, this year it looks like it could be near 2 million rand a year that we get from renting out these facilities. That's largely people externally coming, and placing themselves on our seats and on the carpets, etc., and putting that back into the building. So that's the plan for the future, and I think it's very sustainable. The problem at the moment is we are using that income to subsidize our operating costs kind of every month. So I think you know that. We've kind of been struggling along this year to meet operating costs with just offering income, and so we've been thankful for the rental income. Just in June, though, it was so encouraging to us. You would have heard Bruce give feedback on this. It was the first month this year that our offering income has matched our operating costs. And so everything from rental income from hospitality or renting the facilities has gone back into a small surplus for us. So once that stabilizes, once we can keep kind of June going from an offerings perspective, then we can start to release funds on an ongoing basis. But we're here now, and how will we get to do a lot of these things that, to be honest, are so critical that we perhaps would even need to think about taking loans for aircon units, because once they break, we would just have to invest that money. So kind of the first message that I want to say to those of you here and to those watching online, the first call is just to continue, and thank you for your consistent monthly offering to the church. June was so encouraging that we finally were able to see those two balance one another. So that's just first point, is to continue doing that. Otherwise, there absolutely is no way we would be able to do any of these things, and that's why we've got in the position that we are in now. So I think that's the first part, is to say that. But that obviously what that boils down to is the only way we're going to fund this project is through the voluntary additional giving of the people of RUC. Now, I know that's a big number, and that's a big task for all of us. So as we draw to a close tonight, I just want to talk to you for a little bit about investing in church buildings, because this can be a tricky subject. Whenever large sums of money are discussed in the context of church, particularly when it comes to things like, material space, there's always tricky questions around, is this the best use of our money? Because there's always so many valid needs. So just let me speak to this a little bit. I think that we all know the fundamental truth that the church, technically speaking, the church is not a building. The church is people. We know that, right? The New Testament word for church, the Greek word ekklesia, simply means the kind of called out ones. It means an assembly. It's an assembly of the people that are Christians. So the word for church in our Bibles doesn't refer to a building, it refers to people. So at a very basic, fundamental level, it's true to say that the church is not a building, but a building is where the church meets. Does that make sense? And what that fundamentally means then is that at a very basic level, that a church building is simply therefore kind of a tool. So the building is not the church, the building helps us be the church. So fundamentally, it's a tool. That's why the first space that people do build when they are starting a ministry is the worship space, so that people can gather and pray and sing and listen to the word, whether it's raining or whether it's bright sunshine outside, is they'll build a worship space. But of course, church is more than just Christians gathering together to just worship. A church is a worshiping community for sure, but it's also a worshiping community on mission. And so this building is a tool, a space where we can meet and gather together on a Sunday, but it's also a space where we can do mission. And that's why I was determined, and we've been determined, that this kind of project should follow mission. It should be following what we're already doing, the direction we already have, the results we're already seeing in a ministry sense of the church. It's happening. We're not trying to make something happen here. We're trying to catch up and keep up with what is already happening. So that's the really fundamental basics of a church building, is a tool. So I think that's where we start. But there's something a lot deeper to consider when we think about church buildings, because as it turns out, church buildings are not just tools. So just think with me a little bit here. You're going to have to reflect a little bit theologically, but it's true to say, another question 12, it's true to say these days God does not dwell in temples. Yes, God does not dwell in temples. So therefore, we don't have to build these ornate structures to house God like you would house a king. I mean, we're not in Old Testament times, yes? But while it's true to say that God is not limited to being worshipped in a particular place, the fact remains that for human beings, the places that we inhabit, the places that we live, and the places that we worship is important to us. So what I'm saying is God is omnipresent, right? He's everywhere. And since Pentecost, and this has been a bit of a Pentecost vibe, like through his Holy Spirit, is available, at all times and at all places. But while it's true that God is omnipresent, we are not omnipresent, yes? And although we've been filled with the Spirit since Pentecost, we are not purely spiritual beings. We are Spirit-filled beings, but we are physically bound people that are very rooted in places and spaces. And it turns out we're quite attached to particular places and particular spaces. So just bear with me here as we just unpack this a little bit. So Apostle Paul in Acts 17 is kind of just recounting a lot of things about God. But just listen to what he says, because he's talking about worship and space. He says this: the God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, there's the green and blue, does not live in temples made by man. Fact, yes, we got this. This is New Testament. Doesn't live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And then he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and feel the way toward him and find him. In other words, all that to say, God doesn't need a particular physical space, but we do. And these particular physical spaces are these spaces that we seek God, and I love that description, like feel our way toward him and find him. So here we're getting closer really to the significance of church buildings. And I want you to think about this a little while. I've got a few more questions for you. So buildings, just think like literally this kind of structure. Buildings are inanimate objects, right? They're not alive. This is not a trick question. The answer to that is yes. So it's not alive. The building doesn't communicate with us. The building doesn't have feelings. The building doesn't have memories, right? Again, not a trick question, right? But think about this. Can our memories, can we be stirred up by buildings? And if so, if we get stirred up and if memories and things go on inside us because of buildings, do buildings impact us then? So that's where I'm going with this. Like a real sense that the physical spaces and the particular places that we inhabit as human beings, while they are inanimate and do not speak, do impact us in some profound ways. I don't know if any of you, I'm presuming like a lot of people here tonight have moved a few times in their lives. So in my 42 years, I've moved, I'm in my 6th home currently. So if you've moved a bit, have you ever driven past the house where you grew up, if that's possible? Have you done that? I did that a few years ago to the house that I grew up in, which is a plot of 24 acres of land in like South Joburg, so like Walkerville, like really, and nothing on it, to this house that, I'm not joking, my dad built. Like really big house. My dad built with his hands, with his dad, my opa, built this house, and I drove past it a few years back. And if you do this, like stuff comes flooding back, right? So looking at this house that literally my dad built, that I lived in the first 21 years. I moved out of house when I was 21 and moved to Sasolburg. And I look at this house, that's where I was formed as a human being. I still look and I do see we shared bedrooms. I'm one of 4 kids, and so I shared with my brother, and eventually we all needed our own bedroom. My dad was like, "You want your own bedroom? Build it." So I'm useless with my hands, but this is not a lot. But with his help, like cut open the roof, and I laid the bricks for my room. My dad came behind me and relayed all the bricks for my room. But I look there and see all of this going on. Like there's a lot. If you have to go drive past the house, it's an inanimate object, right? It doesn't communicate. It doesn't have feelings. It's just bricks, right? But you go past that place and all sorts of things come flooding back to you. There's words, I hesitate to share this with you, and this is not particularly a pastoral recommendation, disclaimer, but there are words to a country song. This country songs are notorious for some bad lyrics, that's why I'm saying this. But country song by Miranda Lambert, and you can go check it out. It's a song that Kristen and I actually can't listen to because it gets too emotional. She's on this kind of, she's going and checking out her childhood home, and she's in a place of pain and just wants to reconnect with the house. So, check it out, just have a tissue because it's quite emotional. But just listen to these words. She says this, she said, I thought if I could touch this place or feel it, this brokenness inside of me start healing. Man, I'm not even... out here, it's like I'm someone else. I thought that maybe I could find myself. If I could just come in, I swear I'll leave, she says. And then she says this, I won't take nothing but a memory from the house that built me. And you think that's the name of the song, by the way, the house that built me. That's nonsense. Houses don't build people, do they? They don't. But yet, we're so attached to these spaces, we know that it's so much more than that. Here's the thing. It's true to say that you don't need a building to be a church, right? Sure. But while it's true to say that you don't need a building to be the church, it would equally be true to say that you don't need a house to be a family, correct? And yet we know just how these two concepts of home and family are inseparable. And it's not a coincidence that the New Testament language or metaphor, the primary metaphor for a particular church in the New Testament is family and a household. We did a series on 1 Timothy last year. It's a letter written to a particular pastor of a particular church, so it's written for individual churches. The title of the series was God's Household, because that is the way this is described, and the household needs a home. So you can't just say it's an inanimate building. If you drive past your old house, I'm sure, I'm sentimental, so that happens, but I'm sure it happened with you too. But what happens if you drive past where you got married? And what does that bring back to you in covenant and commitment? Or what about where you went to school or university? So I don't go past my high school because that wasn't a particular great experience. But these days, because of where I live now, whenever I travel to see my parents, so on Fridays I normally work from my mom's house, she looks after the kids, and I work from a room there, and I have to drive on the M1. And so I drive pretty much every Friday now. I went to Wits University, right? So that's where I got my first degree. And I drive on the M1 underneath that big Amic deck. So where Wits University is split on East and West campus. I drive past that almost every Friday now. So that's why I went. When I drive under that Amic deck, so that's the big bridge, man, a ton of stuff starts to go on. So when I was 9 years old, so this is true, when I was 9 years old, not even double digits, my dad took me to go see the building of that Amic deck. So we were living in this plot in south of Joburg, and he took me to see this building because I was a young guy, and so big cranes, and it was just really cool. So he took me there, and then I remember him telling me, he went to Wits University, he also studied engineering. And he showed me, before it was the big Amic deck, is this little kind of single-lane pedestrian bridge. And he showed me that's the bridge that I walked over hundreds of times as I was studying engineering. And then he said this to me, maybe one day you'll walk on this new bridge. And then when I was at Wits University, I crossed that Amic deck 1,000 times. The engineers had this thing on spring day. We would have a breakfast cookout on this Amic deck on KDAX. And it was this weird thing, we'd dress half in suits in the top and then shorts in the bottom because engineers are weird, And I'd be on that Amic deck and, just thinking about those words of my dad from when I was 9 years old about potentially being there one day. So you must know, when I drive under that Amic deck today, it's just a bridge, right? It's a bridge. But it just takes me back to my father and his study and how he sacrificed and me being there and all sorts of things going on. What I'm trying to say to you is the significance of buildings is tied to the significance of the events that take place in and around those buildings. That's what makes buildings significant. Now think with me. What is the significance of events that take place here, right here? And we're not talking about where you had your first kiss or where you found God, where you grew in relationship with God. How significant, therefore, are these spaces that we inhabit? Yeah, it's bricks, yeah, it's carpets, yeah, it's seats that flip up and down 1,000 times. But it's not just a tool. These are sacred spaces. Not because the material objects are sacred, although this is pretty cool, although in the budget is a nice bigger pulpit. It's like in my Bible. And yeah. It's sacred not because of the material, it's sacred because of what happens in these places. And I too hope that one day, and my kids, maybe one day when they're married and come back here, maybe we're still here, who knows, and they come and show their spouses, this is the place where they met God. Not because God lives at Rosebank Union Church, but they met him here. So that's what we're doing. We're refreshing this sacred space. It can only happen through individuals' completely voluntary giving towards it. I made my deposit for this today because I wanted to be the first one to do it. The mechanics of it are really simple. It's just a deposit into the church bank account with the tag guess, refresh, and once we have funding to mobilize some of these units, we'll get going with them. And we have an idea of kind of what order we would do these things. I totally understand, in fact, fully recommend that you spend a lot of time thinking and praying about this. I'm sure you have a lot of questions that you have, or ideas or feedback that you have, and so certainly we would love to hear a lot of that feedback and get a lot of your ideas. And so there's 2 opportunities in the immediate future for you to do that, so not tonight, but in the immediate future. So next week Sunday, so not this Sunday, because I still have to announce this on this Sunday, but next Sunday, the 7th of August, 4 o'clock, we're going to do a walk around, right? And so anyone who wants to come, we'll do a walk around and we'll kind of split up into teams so you can see some of these areas. Literally go have a look at the brown bath, etc. And walk around and see and just envisage with us. And you can ask a lot of questions, give input. Hey man, but like what about this? So a walk around tour next Sunday, 4 o'clock. We can't do it after the morning service because there's too many people around. So 4 o'clock, then you could stay for the evening service. And then the following Sunday, on the 14th, we'll do a bit more of a kind of formal Q&A and presentation in the Jerusalem Mall, so you can see how it would be cool if it was different. But we'll do that there and have a lot more opportunities. So there's lots of time to think about this and engage with us. And please do you can just email any one of Brett, myself, or Roy. By the way, also, if you want all of this information, it is currently live on a specially dedicated webpage, ruc.org.za/refresh. Jaime, here he is, just Jaime over there. It's like literally he was doing updates like now as we're speaking, like final images. So that's there. All of the information is for you to go and check it out. I didn't bring it up with me, but there's these little cards that these guys will give you at the door. This is just like a visual reminder, so refresh, and then the black and white logo for you to just put in your Bible or put on your fridge so that you as a family can think and talk about this. So we've got time to engage about it, and just get your input on this. But this is our home. This is our sacred space. And we feel like this refresh is consistent with what God has been doing, really, in the inner spaces where it really matters. So we're going to close tonight. I'm going to call up in a second Roy, who's chairman of our EGB, and I'm not just calling him up because he's chairman of the EGB. Roy has been very involved with this. So he's been on the roof and trying to fix the trip units. That's why this past Sunday was actually warmer. So Roy's been very engaged with this. And so Roy is just going to close for us in prayer and perhaps say a few words. So over to you, Roy.
Right, good evening, everybody. I'm here to make sure that you go home. So first of all, thank you very much for coming along this evening. I think it's important. These town hall meetings have become sort of a feature of Rosebank over the last 3 years, specifically to talk about what the church is doing and what it's about. So I think this one is no change to us. One of the great privileges that I do have being on the EGB is actually working with such a passionate team. And I think that I'd like to just say, can we give a round of applause to the whole team, which is Richard, Brett, and Candace, for putting the thing together tonight, and for James to put the stuff together so that you could actually see this thing. It's one thing to come up here and stand up and tell you about plans. It's another thing that you can see specific pictures and get a sense of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. So maybe just a round of applause for them as thanks. Just 4 quick points, and I don't want to, because I actually want to pray, and I think that's the most important part of the whole message here. But just very briefly, I think the first point that I want to bring across is that it's so much important to remember that Rosebank is a congregational church, and a congregational church means that every member is effectively part of the church, makes up the church, and is invested in the church. And so, you could think, well, my little part's not going to make much difference, or there'll be someone else that's going to make a bigger part, that's going to make a big impact in terms of this program or project. It doesn't count. I think it's important that everyone really pitches in and does it. And it doesn't matter if you think that you're going to buy half a chair cushion, or you're going to buy a whole chair block, or whatever. I think it's important that everybody gets involved. And in the same vein, as Richard has mentioned, if you've got ideas, if you've got questions, if you need to understand things a bit more, and I understand that from speaking to my predecessors, that when they tend to announce these sort of things, that's when life becomes a little challenging for them. So I'm quite happy that you're going to corner me and start asking me lots of questions and going forward, and let's talk about it. I think that's the most important point. The second thing that I wanted to mention was just this issue of what I call kicking the can down the road. I've seen that, we've done it, I've experienced that in business a lot of times, where issues that are kind of just a little bit too big to deal with, we just postpone. And I'm very grateful that hasn't been the total story of Rosebank. And you've heard how the work that was done in 2016 on the sanctuary actually was providence for the fact that we were able to then stream the church online, because we could then climb in quickly, build a studio, make the modifications in 2020, get that up and running, and deliver sort of seamless church worship to all of our members. But there are things that we have kicked down the road, and the thing that I know for a fact is the air conditioning unit that's been kicking around since 2017, 2015. The sign outside, it was installed in 2007. It stopped working in 2017. Again, it's a little bit too expensive to deal with, so we just put a banner over it with Brad Pitt on it. But again, it's those sort of challenges, and I think that's what we're trying to address here. We don't want to kind of go for this thing ad hoc and little bits and little bits and little bits. So it's going to be a program that happens over a period of time. We're not putting a time frame to it, but we want to actually deal with these big issues once and for all as a church collective. And I think that's just the only point there. The third point I want to raise is what I call prudent spending. So I just want to say for the record that I don't like spending money unless I believe I'm getting some value for it, particularly. Maybe it's my Scottish blood as a Campbell, or maybe it's because I'm married to a Dutch descendant wife. But just as an example, we had an instance last year where we were told that we had to fix something in the bathroom and it was going to cost us 12,000 Rand. And that kind of just stuck in me for a little bit to think, no, that's just ridiculous that we've got to spend 12,000 Rand. Anyway, with a bit of smart work and a bit of providence, and certainly quite a lot of insight and wisdom, I think must have had God's hand in it, we were able to sort it out for basically 2 packets of biltong. So, it just shows you. I don't think we're going to be able to do that with the air conditioning unit, but, let's put it in context. So I think the important thing is that certainly the EGB FinCom is committed to looking at this thing very carefully and making sure that we spend wisely and that we do things correctly while not impacting the operational ministries of the church. This is not just about basically just focusing all our attention on the buildings. And then the final point just to raise here is really this thing about, if you came on Sunday, you would have heard Richard speaking about King Nebuchadnezzar walking around his palace in the evening, self-aggrandizement, looking at this wonderful place that he'd built with his own hands. And that's certainly not what we're trying to achieve here. I'm not going to add anything further to what Richard's already explained about the impact of a building and what it actually means, what this church means to us. But just to say that we're absolutely committed to the fact that this needs to be God honoring and God glorifying in this process. And it's all about what God can do and how great He is. And so I just want to close in prayer. And instead of a traditional prayer, I'm going to read a hymn that I love to play. In fact, a lot of people that have, when I play at the funerals, often a lot of people actually request this hymn. And it links in with that antidote that Richard spoke about on Sunday. And the antidote to self-aggrandizement is to sing. So maybe you want to just bow your heads while I just read this particular this particular hymn as a prayer and close. It's How Great Thou Art. O Lord, my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the works your hands have made, when I see the stars, when I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. And when I think that God, his Son, not sparing, sent him to die, I scarce can take it in, that on the cross my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. And then when Christ shall come with shout of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart? Then I shall bow in humble adoration and then proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Saviour God, to thee, how great thou art, how great thou art. Lord, thank you for your awesome wonder. Thank you that you are holy and want us to be holy. We ask for your kingdom to come, your will to be done here at RUC in Johannesburg, in this country and to the ends of the earth where the gospel message is proclaimed through this, your church. We pray for passion for your gospel message, to become a gospel-cultured people, not just telling people about you, but showing our commitment and regard for you and your gospel through our lives and this church. Now may grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, who gave himself for our sins to rescue us from the present evil age, according to the will of our God and Father, to whom be all glory for and ever. Amen. Thank you again for your attendance this evening, and we trust that we will see you on Sunday for the next exciting episodes when there is some writing on the wall.